Chicago, Illinois. It is CPAC Chicago, and this is Catherine Engelbrecht from a group called True the Vote. Catherine, it's nice to meet you.
Thanks so much for having me, Cameron.
I can't imagine a more apt organization right now when you talk about what's going on there. I mean, in the news daily, it seems like it always involves the Department of Justice and Eric Holder,
Right.
but it's just some funny tweets recently where you need a photo ID to go into the Massachusetts Democrats Convention.
Mm-hmm.
You need a photo ID to get a book signed by Michelle Obama. But to vote, voter ID laws, oh, no way.
Right.
So, where do you come down on all this?
Well, I think respective to the NRA, here's one I use often. You will hear sometimes from the left, well, you shouldn't have to show ID because voting is a civil right and you shouldn't have to prove anything. But our Second Amendment clearly tells us you can have guns, but you have to show your ID to buy those, and no one's really screaming about that. I think the whole argument is a farce on its face, but it is not surprising given that this administration seems to be determined to force a radical agenda on us that bears really no logic in a lot of places.
All right, so True the Vote, what do you guys do? I mean, you have one heck of a battle. I mean, when you're talking about fighting this, so what can you do and what does your organization do on a daily basis?
True the Vote is a citizen-led effort to ensure election integrity by encouraging citizens to actually get involved. I think for too long we all just thought that the government had our elections under control. We just went and voted and the rest of it would take care of itself. But the fact is there are tons of places where citizens can work. You can work as poll watchers. We have research programs where you can research the veracity of your own rolls. We look at registration efforts, whether or not Acorn really is in your community and what they may or may not be doing to bloat your rolls. We take a very hands-on approach. It's a very roll up your sleeves and get into the middle of it process. And what you learn is that there's an awful lot of improvement to be had in our elections, and if we don't do it, no one's going to.
Now, why are you so passionate about this, so much so that you started an organization?
Right. Well, in 2009, a small group of friends, including myself, went to work at the polls, and we really thought it was just going to be a one-day thing. But it was our first time to work at the polls, and I was stunned by what I saw. All of a sudden, the veil was pulled back on what I thought was a very simple process. I saw for the first time the mass confusion. I saw what can only be described as out-and-out election fraud. People who were coming in with multiple registration cards, people who were coming in and being allowed to vote without showing any ID whatsoever. Things that you have to question if this is what they do when people are watching. What happens when they're not? And so we decided that we would just deconstruct the whole process and figure out where citizens could in fact insert themselves and be a part of a positive contribution towards making the system better. And really thought it was going to be a great unifying effort that everyone could get along, and this would be something that we could all agree on. How can you be against True the Vote, right? If you're against True the Vote, what are you for? I'm for vote fraud. So this should.
What a bumper sticker that would be.
Exactly. So we really thought that this would be something that, in a time when our country's never been more polarized, we could all come to the middle on this. But lo and behold, that is not the case. We see again with this administration, it's just stunning, the assault on our elections that we're watching gain steam with every passing day. And so we found ourselves unwittingly to now be on the front lines of an issue that I think will be the inflection point for this election.
We started this interview talking about the massive amounts of this and the story after story after story, and I would think that the average listener or viewer right now would think that there's just too much of this. How could you possibly fix it? Organizations like yours, of course, are very important, but it would seem more important to work as much as possible to get an administration in there and an attorney general in there that not, of course, in NRA News we want to protect the Second Amendment rights, but someone who would protect voting rights too. So I would imagine that you're working very hard on that as well.
Absolutely. Well, it's all sort of part of a piece, right? Because if you find value in spending time trying to stop the corruption where it starts, which we argue is at the polls, then what you do is you end up truing the process all the way to the highest offices in the land. But we've got to, I believe, take the reins back at what is without question, the cornerstone of our republic. That's got to be shored up first, because then anything else that we talk about, that we stack on top of our elections, immigration or Second Amendment or education or fiscal responsibility, any of those things, presupposes that we have people in place who have been duly elected. And I believe that the process by which we cast and count our votes is in fact in peril. So it's incredibly important that citizens get involved.
A lot of people also watching and listening, that they have the same argument as you do, but one of the first things people on the other side will call you a racist. I mean, the word racist is thrown out like it's unbelievable. So when you're called a racist, what is your response?
We're glad to work with anybody. This has absolutely nothing to do with race or creed or color or party or politics. It's about principle. And there are those that are going to throw anything they can to try to divide and exclude, and that's not what this effort is about. And so, the proof's in the work, and we're just going to keep forging ahead.
Sounds you have a mighty task. Congratulations on taking it on. How can people help and find out more?
They can go to truethevote.org, sign up. We're active currently in 32 states. We're helping support the efforts of hundreds of citizen-led groups. And we are hoping to have, if we can just keep on the trajectory that we're on, it's entirely possible that we'll mobilize 1 million people between now and November. It's crazy. But I think it's a sign that it has come high time for a national call for election integrity. That's got to be a baseline measure by which everything else, can flow up.
And nonpartisan. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. No, absolutely not. It's let the best man or woman win. Just let it be fair. Just let it be fair. And so our goal is to leave no polling place unmanned, to leave no registry unchecked, and to see a get out the vote effort that really takes a look at the voting process. And I think there's an awful lot of good that'll come out of it.
Catherine, nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me.